Okay, good afternoon, Jim, and thank you so much for having me along to speak at your event. It's lovely to see you all and see so many familiar faces. Now that I've got the camera working, I can actually see you all. It's lovely to see you, and it's right that we're here today to celebrate our achievements, you know, now that we're in the sort of the final day of the 16 days. But I know, and you'll know, that we are all working 365 days. The 16 days just gives us an opportunity to really emphasise that work. I think, like you, Jim, and in Alison's speech as well, I've been really shocked and saddened to see the additional risks that women and children have been affected by violence and abuse because of the pandemic, and to see those increases during this period, I think will give us all pause for thought, but certainly gives us all room for improvement, I think, in how we can tackle that. However, and I've spoken at a number of events over the last 16 days, so if you've been in one or two of them, or in some people's cases, many of them, you'll have heard me say this before, but I make no apology for saying it. I would like to personally, on behalf of the government as well, pay tribute to those who have worked absolutely tirelessly to help women and children affected by violence and abuse during this exceptionally challenging time. It's something that I don't think I can stress enough, as I know that we've all faced our own challenges during this time as well, and to see the brave women of Rape Crisis take to the ocean again today for their final day, and to see, I think they're well over £12,000 raised in that. Some challenges are more challenging than others. That sea must be guy-called, I have to say, but it just shows you the lengths and the breadth that people have gone to really step up and do what we need to do. I think the measures that we've had to take to stop COVID, you know, that have been necessary because of public health and protect the public from the virus, has made access and help much harder for a lot of women and girls experiencing violence and abuse. And at its heart, we know that this violence continues to be underpinned by women's inequality and the attitudes and structural barriers that perpetuate that inequality. And I think in Jim's contribution when he opened, and I heard about your speech last year as well, Jim, you know, I think there'll not be many of us sitting here today who will not have been impacted by the wise words they were mammies. And I'm sorry to hear that you lost yours. I lost mine a few years ago now, but mammies have always been very impactful, and I think you have done her incredibly proud in the work that you do, both at council level and in events like this, and the work that I know you will continue on. But I think what COVID has done for us all is really exacerbated those inequalities that you and I and Alison and others have spoken about. They've really shone a light on those inequalities. We knew they were already there, but COVID just exposed them in all their ugliness. However, I'm always a hopeful person, and I hope that there's a wee, you know, silver lining over the horizon. But I think as we emerge from this incredibly difficult period, and as I've said at other 16 days events over the past 16 days, I think we can strive together to create something better, and I think that's given us all a new impetus and a new focus. I think we can all appreciate the pandemic has highlighted how fragile our systems actually are and how easy it could be for them to break down. And I think we must ensure that we use learning from this event and learning from all of the work that we do towards better outcomes for women and girls impacted by gender-based violence. And to do this, we all must demonstrate leadership to collaboratively progress this agenda across our various sectors. I think there's nothing prouder for me to have Councillor Kelly Parry as my co-chair on the Equally Safe board, and to take part in events like this and see councillors, organisations, third sector individuals, you know, statutory bodies all working together. I think that's incredibly important, and that'll be our powerful tool in all of this. The Scottish Government, in responding to demands for a decisive shift towards prevention, and I think it's been hugely beneficial to hear what action and initiatives have been happening across local government to tackle violence against women and girls, promote gender equality. And I have to say again to thank Councillor Evison for her input. She always gives us all pause for thought when she speaks, and of course she finished off with my favourite quote from Eleanor Roosevelt. And yes, I have changed the he to she and they on a number of occasions. I don't think Eleanor would have been very upset about that at all. But I think one of the things that we have to realise that our systems really need to be equipped to identify risk and respond quickly. And this is more important than ever as we focus on our immediate response to a period and into a period of recovery and renewal. A prime example of our continued commitment to improve the services for women experiencing violence against women and girls has been the approach embedded within the Renewal, Recovery and Transformation programme within our justice system. And I'm sure there's many more folk who can speak with much more experience than I can on that. COVID-19 has had a significant impact on Scotland's justice system. Backlogs and delays can have been particularly devastating effect on victims of gender-based violence, and the Recover, Renew and Transform programme of work is focused towards enabling the justice system to be able to not just operate again at pre-COVID, but also to prepare for future. There's a lot of learning from all of this pandemic reaction that we've had to take, and that's one of them. And I'm really pleased to know that a consideration of a human rights and equality issue is central to all of that work. You'll not be surprised as a Minister for Equalities and Human Rights, I'm getting my elbows out and my nose in when it comes to this stuff across other portfolios. And I have to say the work of the women's organisations who are represented on the advisory group that sits across the programme to ensure that the voices of women and children affected by domestic abuse will not be lost in the discourse. And I know some of the women, they will not allow their voices to be lost in this either, and I'm really pleased that they're able to use their voices in this way. There's a few things happening, and I'm sorry I can't stay with you because we've got business on in the chamber this afternoon, and I'll just move quickly into a wee explanation of that. You know, in terms of improving the experience of victims of sexual offences and their experiences of the justice system, I am really pleased to say that we're also nearing the end of the legislative process of the Forensic Medical Services Bill. We will finish that work this afternoon or this evening because I think we're voting right on until about 7 o'clock tonight. We prioritise the work of the Chief Medical Officer's Rape and Sexual Assault Task Force throughout the pandemic, and I am really delighted the government and Parliament have been able to continue that legislative process for that bill at a time when we had to drop other things. You know, it was great to see that one continuing because it means so much and it will revolutionise, I think, our response and interventions when it comes to rape and sexual assault. I have to say thank you to the task force, the forensic medical examiners who now take place. They now take place in a more appropriate healthcare setting and no longer in police stations, which I know, I see my pal Anne Hayne on this. We talked about this 10 years ago, Anne, and it's good to see that come into fruition. It does pave the way for a national model of self-referral as provided for in the bill. And the bill will empower victims to access forensic medical examination without having to make a police report first. And that's always been an important aspect of all of this. And I think we want to, at a time in your life where you maybe lack control over everything that's happening to you when you're in a situation like that, we wanted to make sure, at least in some of this, you had some control, and that control is when you take part in that process. So that self-referral process, I think, will be again transformational in ensuring that people go forward and get the interventions that they need. However, improving our response to victims must also include an increased focus on robust and effective measures for perpetrators and prevention. Equally Safe's primary aim is prevention, but we know that we have to deal with all of the other things as well. The perpetrator must be visible in more than just a courtroom, and they must be visible in case documentation and in local planning to improve risk and safety assessments. And I think for the work of local planning partnerships, that's incredibly important if you can see that. To achieve this, we've expanded the Caledonian system. An additional £2.8 million is supported in this initiative and the innovative programme to provide specific rehabilitation services to more male perpetrators of domestic abuse in Scotland. That can only be a good thing. 19 local authorities now deliver this, and despite the pandemic, Justice Social Work has continued to provide a comprehensive service, including adapting with the challenges that social distancing has caused. And I can't thank you enough for being able to continue that work as well during incredibly difficult times. I know that recently the Safer and Together Institute in Caledonian also published a companion paper to demonstrate how the key aims of the programme and the principles of Safe and Together interact. And I think that's incredibly important about how does our our policy work together, and how does our interventions work together, and how do the outcomes become better because of that. I think that's incredibly important. I also see that you've got Anna Mitchell giving input later, which I am really sorry to miss, but I would stress the importance of embedding the principles of safe and together national and locally to ensure that perpetrators and their actions are clearly visible and are central to agencies' discourse when implementing safety measures for women and children affected by violence and abuse. Only then, I think, can we ensure that we hold men to account for their actions. Our focus on holding men to account also extends to commercial sexual exploitation and prostitution, and we are holding Scotland's first national consultation on challenge and demand for prostitution, reducing harm and supporting women to exit to inform our future approach to this important issue. And the Scottish Government supports a range of measures which help reduce the harms caused by prostitution. However, it is crucial that the Government continues to engage with people of Scotland to develop our approach in tackling prostitution and include the voices of those with lived experience in the process. We try to do that with everything that we do in government now, is have lived experience voices in there, because it makes for better policy and it makes for better interventions, therefore it makes for better outcomes. The consultation on this closes today, and I really look forward to the government analysing those responses that we've received from a number of stakeholders and everyone else who's responded. You've got a few hours left, I think. If you've not put your comments in, then you can quickly whiz them in, but I suspect, knowing the audience here today, you've already done that as well. Jim, just to conclude, so that you can get on with the rest of your work today, I wanted everyone here who shares a common goal to ensure that women and girls live free from all forms of violence and from the norms, that inequality that creates the circumstances in which violence can happen. I think that's very important. And as I said, unfortunately, I can't stay for the whole event, but I do look forward to seeing the event feedback and working with you all in the future. And I congratulate everyone on their continued efforts and a hugely successful, albeit very different, 16 days of action. And I hope for next year, we'll all be back together with a cup of tea and a proper chat, and we've made progress again next year. Take care, everybody. Have a lovely, restful, peaceful, festive season. And Jim, thank you so much for this event today and your work in this area. Thank you. Take care.